What's up guys, and welcome back to my channel. I know I have been gone for a bit. I've been away for about a week, and this happened for two reasons. At first I had a deadline I had to sort of catch up with, and then I fell ill. I had sore throat, the flu came. You can still tell from my voice that the flu is still there a bit, but I am back. I'm getting better, and thank you so much for all of your kind messages on social media as well as here on YouTube. In this video, I'm going to be showing you guys how to make the pattern for this really cool tailored coat design. I asked you guys on my community page, if you aren't subscribed already, make sure you subscribe, because I often would ask you guys what you'd like to see and give you the opportunity to vote for, I don't know, a future video. So I'm going to be showing you guys how to make this tailored coat pattern. I've split the project into two, so this is for the pattern and the next video is going to be the sewing tutorial, because I just thought it would be too long to have it as one video. So if you'd like to see how this pattern is made, make sure to keep on watching. Give this video a thumbs up if you're excited to see the sewing tutorial as well, and without further ado, let's jump straight into this video. So before we get into the project, I just wanted to bring to your notice that I've done a Riviere and Lapel collar tutorial in the past, and there might be some differences from that project compared to this one that we're about to talk about. So I'm going to be using the following pattern blocks: my basic bodice and my basic sleeve, and I've linked them down in the description box below. So I've laid out my tools here, and these are what I'm going to be working with to create this semi-fitted coat pattern. I've grabbed my basic sleeve, which we're going to be dropping the sleeve head and extending the arm curve so it sits nicer into the armhole. I have my front and my backs, which I'm going to be making a bit wider and a bit longer as well. I'm going to be needing my front and my back basic bodice. Tutorials will be linked down below. I have my long ruler as well as some pattern paper, because we need that to make fresh patterns. I also have a tape measure, a pencil, my eraser, my sharpener, my marker pen, and my paper scissors. I also have my pattern master and my set square, which thankfully is not available on the fabrics.kimdave.com shop. They're limited stock, so it's first come first serve, and if you just go there, follow the link in the description box, you would find the set square and the pattern master to shop for yourself, because a lot of you have been asking me where you can find it. So you guys have to decide the following details for the fit of the jacket, the length, the sleeve length, the width, things like that, before you go ahead to duplicate your front pattern like I'm doing here. So as you can see, I have just traced around my center front, my neckline, my shoulder, but I've extended my arm curve by 5 centimeters because I want a semi-fitted coat. Because the idea is I want to be able to layer jumpers and cardigans underneath this coat, so I need a little bit of room to work with. So I just squared that down and connected it to my hem, and the length of the coat is 75 centimeters or 29 inches from the shoulder all the way to the hem, and the width is 28 centimeters or 11 inches across the body. So now that we have our front, it's time to go ahead and plan our lapel and collar design along the neckline. And the first thing we'll be doing is to extend the center front by 10 centimeters or 4 inches in this direction, and then from that 10 cm point we're going to draw a curved shape back to the waistline. So if you want your lapel to be a bit more pointed, you can just draw a bit more pointy line, but I wanted a more rounded shape around this edge of the lapel, and I'm connecting it back to the waistline, and then I'm extending the waistline by 2.5 centimeters or 1 inch, and I'm just curving it back like so. So there's a bit of room for the lapel or that part of the jacket to wrap around, which is where your button would sit. So I'm just connecting all my necessary lines and indicating where my button is going to be on the front of this jacket. So the next thing we're going to work on is to plan the Riviere collar. So I'm drawing a diagonal line that is 10 centimeters or 4 inches long that is slanted in this direction. and extend the neckline upward in this direction by 9 centimeters or 3.5 inches, which is half of the back neckline. You can see here, I'm just going back to double check that that is the amount of half of my back neckline. So the idea is you are planning half of the Riviere collar on this part of the front, so when you cut that back on the fold, you know you have one piece that goes around. So the back neckline is 8 centimeters or 3 inches wide, and I'm just connecting that to the end of my center back, and we're going to draw a line that goes from the top of the back neck to that 10 cm point we drew earlier on, like this. So this is the Riviere collar, and I just wanted to make a correction here. It actually supposed to go into the lapel a little bit like this. So I'm just going in with my pencil to draw in the new line, and it's about 5 centimeters or 2 inches from the center front. So I'm just going there to mark that point and connect it back to the edge of my Riviere collar. So this is going to be the new edge on this side and not that line we drew earlier on. So I just wanted to make that correction really clear. So once we have these lines marked, I'm just going in to add a notch, which is going to help me to connect the Riviere collar to the neckline of the front along this point here. So the next up, I'm going to add a grain line along the front of the Riviere like this, and it goes in this direction, either upwards or downwards, but it has to be in this direction like this. So you would need to trace off the separate panels for this front on fresh pattern paper. So you need to trace off the front, the panel 1, the panel 2, as well as a pocket which we'll be making later on, excluding this dot that I just crossed out like this. So panel 1 would have the lapel, panel 2 is on the side, and 3, or the Riviere collar, is going to be on the top like so. So you need to get fresh pattern paper, put it on top of this plan, and then just trace out the different panels, add your seam allowance, and that would allow you to connect everything back together to have your front of the coat. So next up, we're going to be planning the inseam pocket. You can decide to do a welt pocket or a patch pocket, but I'm going to be making an inseam pocket that is 15 centimeters or 6 inches deep or wide from the waistline. So I'm just drawing in by freehand the curve of a pocket. This you might want to do with pencil first before going ahead with a marker pen, so you can correct any mistakes that you make before going ahead to connect your dash lines using a marker like I'm doing, and then adding 2 notches. So this will help you connect the pocket back together when it's time to sew this into the side seam of the front. So this is what the front plan looks like. I say once you get a plan of a garment right, tracing and adding a seam allowance is the easy part, because once you make a mistake on the plan, you transfer that same mistake to your actual patterns. So I'm just going to go ahead and trace off my different panels, and this is my Riviere collar, which sits like this. I've gone ahead and I've added my 1 centimeter seam allowance all around the neckline, the front, and the top, but I left the center back to be cut on the fold. I have my side panel like this, and I went ahead and I added a 2 centimeter or 0.8 inch hem allowance. I also have my front panel 1, which has my lapel, and this you would need to cut 2 for, so 1 on the left and 1 on the right hand side. I also have my inseam pocket pattern, which I traced off of my plan, and I added a 1 centimeter seam allowance all the way around. So you can either work with 1 centimeter or half an inch. It just depends on what you prefer. So these are all of my front patterns laid down and flat. I have my Riviere, I have my panel 1 with my lapel, I have my panel 2 as well as my pockets. So the great thing about this plan is you can use these same patterns to cut the lining, but for the lining you just cut it 1 centimeter hem allowance instead of 2, so that way you can connect it along the hem but with a shorter length for the lining. And that's what I plan to do when I actually sew this coat. So I'm going to move on to the back patterns, and I've duplicated my back like I did for the front. I made it longer, I made it wider with the same dimensions that we worked with for the front, but then I traced around my center back, my neckline, and my shoulder, as well as transferred my dots. And with that done, we can go ahead and plan our back patterns. The first I'll be working on is the back facing, which is 8 centimeters down the center back or 3 inches down the center back, and I'm just connecting it to that division line that we used to create our panel 1 and 2 for the back. And I'm just adding 2 notches here so we can tell that this is supposed to be on the back. So that back facing is what will be connected to the lining on the inside of the semi-fitted coat. So next up here, I'm just marking 2 centimeters or 0.8 inches in of the waist, and I'm curving that back into the top and the bottom of the coat because I just want the back to be a bit more snatched when I have it on. This is completely optional, you don't have to do this particular step, but I just thought I would experiment with a different fit on the back of this coat design. So with that curved back and in place, when you trace off that center back panel, you trace it with that 2 cm or 0.8 intake in place. So here I'm just creating a panel that is going to be visible on the outside of the coat, and this panel would connect to the other 2 at the bottom. This will make complete sense when I sew this coat together, I promise. So this will leave us with panel 1, 2 and 3 for the back, and then you have the back facing on the top of the inside. So here I'm just tracing off the center back line like so on fresh pattern paper so I can create a lining. So I'm just tracing up onto the bottom of that, back facing we did, because that's where the link up is going to be between the lining and the facing. And I'm going to trace around the shoulder, around the arm curve, around the side seam, and around the hem as well. But for the lining, you only need to add a 1 centimeter or 1/2 inch hem allowance when you are working with the lining. So I'm just adding that here like so with my pattern master and my ruler. And then for the center back, you just draw a 2 cm sort of center back allowance, but this will be cut on a fold and pleated back into the center back of the jacket on the inside, because the idea is when you wear this, you want the lining to have a bit of room, so when you move, the lining does not rip on the inside of your jacket or of your coat. So this is my lining all done and cut out. I added my seam allowances all the way around, and I did the same for the other panels of the back. I added a 1 centimeter or about a 0.4 seam allowance around all of my back panels, and I added my hem allowances as well for my panel 1 and 2 for the back. And then I have that curved panel for the top, which also has its own seam allowance. So these panels here are for the outside, and then the lining goes with that back facing that I showed you guys previously. Another additional pattern I made was a pattern for an epaulette, which is this military detail you normally see on the shoulder, and these are the dimensions that I work with. Usually you want it to be almost the same length as your shoulder, and is synonymously found on shoulders of denim jackets, of coats, and I just thought it to be a cool detail to incorporate into this coat design and for you guys to learn as well. So I've cut it out and I've placed a seam allowance all the way around for me to work with. So this is my sleeve pattern, and what I did with the sleeve was I made it longer and I dropped the sleeve head by about 4 centimeters or about 1.5 inches. And this I did because the original sleeve pattern has way too much ease in it, and this just becomes a real problem when it's time to fit the sleeve into the bodice that I have. So if you've watched that sleeve tutorial and you've tried to fit it into your bodice and it didn't work, that's because it has way too much ease, and you would want to drop that or remove that from your pattern before going ahead to work. But with the sleeve all done, these are all of the patterns I'm going to be using to go ahead to create my semi-fitted coat design. But I hope you guys enjoyed watching all the same. These patterns took me a whole day to make, and I'm excited to cut and sew the actual piece. If you guys are excited as well, please give this video a thumbs up, comment all of your thoughts, suggestions and ideas down below, and I will see you guys in my next one. Bye.